Yeah, and before we call on you, Sandra, for a moment, I'd like to add to that, Eileen, something that I have found, and this is again a few people I've met in my life, not per se myself, but just people I've met and been impressed by. Something that
Hmm.
was pretty impressive was when I saw another human being in my presence that was confronted with something that they hadn't thought of before. That again, they made the more impressive is the longer the life they've lived, and the more that they have to be in contemporary terms egotistical about or prideful about. So I'm saying that there are people who you could call very accomplished, but when I view them as humble enough to accept information that is for their growth ultimately, but
Hmm.
information that they're learning, and I get to see that process in front of me, the humility that they show in accepting it, it's very transformative, the experience. I say that with a lot reserved, and I say this because it's one thing to have someone who's a child learning. It's another thing for someone who's at their low point, say they end up in prison and they find God, or
Hmm.
someone who's sick and dying and they say, I'm going to change my ways, God. No,
Hmm.
someone who's at their prime, someone who has no need for things, someone who's doing well, so to speak, and
Hmm.
in a typical story where people don't listen when everything's going right,
Yep.
this person listens, this
Yep.
person looks at that and introspectively. That's impressive.
Very impressive. And of course, in my life, everything had gone wrong, but thank heaven I recognized Baha'u'lláh. That changed everything. And I have still had a lot of challenges since I declared 34 years ago, but I tend to meet them differently, and it's all part of the process.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, people who are humble in midlife or a little beyond at the peak of their life, those are the truly inspiring people. They're humble and spiritually striving. They are the example.
Thank you for that, ma'am. Thank you, Eileen. And with that being said, we have Miss Sandra Sheriff Meyer from the UK. Please, we're sending you a request to unmute. Please ask your comment, ask your question, make a comment. We sent you a request there. So while Sandra is unmuting because she raised her hand,
Mm-hmm.
uh, the one piece that you mentioned, Eileen, it's definitely amazing because in the West, just to point out, just for all of us thinking about this, in the West where we have so many, and unfortunately, I'm calling it distractions, but
Yes, that's the perfect word. That's what just came into my mind. Distractions.
I'm going to say more. I would like to use the word tools because ultimately
Mm-hmm.
the having a telephone, having a computer, even social media is ultimately a tool. Having all of these means at our disposal to do more in our society, um,
Mm-hmm.
and of course people who make money, having all these things available, these are tools. And unfortunately, in our society, rather than focusing on the temple and cleaning the human temple and keeping it bright and resplendent and luminous, we tend to view other things as the shiny object that's worthy of our adoration. And it's intriguing seeing this because when you start accepting the Baha'i teachings as the guidepost for which, or sorry, the axis upon which you're rotating, really you're revolving around these teachings, you recognize that you're within a mold that someone else has cast for you rather than yourself casting your own mold.
Well,
And
yeah, go ahead. Well, I was about to say, sorry to interrupt. We can level the mountains ourselves in the sense of how they affect us. We do not have to get involved. in so much of what's going on. We can level the political mountain and let it go. We can level the economic consumer mountain, flatten it. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Please continue.
Well, that's excellent points you raised, and that's the point here. It's a lot of things that we view as an encumbrance to engaging in spiritual action in the West, such as needing to have a job to pay for things. The assumption is the things you're paying for are necessary.
I know.
And on that point, I say that not everything that we are doing is necessary to have.
That's
and
right.
I'm not saying that people should seek more or less, or that we shouldn't have certain things, we should have others. I'm not even making that distinction. That's something that's left to persons to reflect on in their hearts. I'm just simply saying that in the West, where people would in poverty just wish to have, say, a car so they can go and engage in an act of service, or have the means to travel or communicate in a way that we can here. It's very valuable that we recognize the tools that are at our disposal so readily, and that we can use them to engage in social good, be it in just meeting with our friends to spiritually engage, like we are doing now on Zoom.
Yes.
To engage in spiritual subject, or in the context of learning together, setting up mutual growth sessions, such as study circles. Of course, in person, it's best to do things, in my opinion, but that's my opinion.
Yes.
Going and like Eileen, you're going to Texas to do the Dawnbreakers challenge.
Yes.
So we have across the country various communities that are engaging in the Dawnbreakers challenge, and that is the immersion in the Dawnbreakers, immersion in the story and the context, and really an understanding of the beginnings of the Baha'i faith. Why did thousands of people arise knowing that they would die, still persist in believing as they did and declaring their belief, and meet their deaths with such happiness and such gratefulness to God that they had that opportunity? It's mind-boggling, realizing that in the face of the fiercest fanaticism, that you had people stand up where they knew they would die for saying that women and men are equal, die for saying you have the duty to search for spiritual reality yourself, and not through some other intermediary, or I would call it self-imposed intermediary, because it's not like Jesus or Bahá'u'lláh being intermediaries are unimportant. It's the people who say they know best for you that come in between, such as our beloved clergy that has guided humanity for so long. Now it's not the time for them to guide. It's not the time for them to remain in their post, because now we are of maturity to do it ourselves. But this whole development, it's in the West, where a religion has taken root, where you have a lot of people who would view, rather than freedom of religion, they would be standing up for freedom from religion as the big tentpole attraction at the moment. It's not as easily understood. So going through the Dawnbreakers challenge and seeing where the Baha'i faith started and what happened, and then reading the Book of Certitude, the Kitab-i-Iqan, reading through Some Answered Questions of Abdu'l-Bahá, it really puts in perspective this whole spiritual story that we just discussed with Eileen, just a little bit of it today, going from the Old Testament to now.
I would urge everyone to consider going to one of these. You probably received the information by email. I'm flying from Vermont to Texas to attend. That's how important I think an opportunity like this is.
Yeah, you're going to Sugarland. It's like the board game Candyland, but it's a real place.
It's a real place, suburb just outside of Houston. Did we have a question from Sandra?
Yes, while we were talking, I sent her, I sent Sandra a request to unmute, but unfortunately Sandra hasn't unmuted yet.
Oh, she has now.
I unmuted and then I remuted because the conversation was too interesting to interrupt.
Well, thank you. Thank you. We're ready, please.
I'm really fascinated because I've always thought of the temple of man as being the physical body. So can you kind of help me bridge the gap in my understanding between this temple of man as being a physical temple for the because I see it as the home of the soul, or that's how I've understood it from some. I used to be Christian before, and
Okay.
and then also there's this idea that has persisted. Maybe it comes from Christian or maybe Catholic tradition, where the body is ill, that is a sign of the sickness of the soul. And how do we move beyond that to this new vision that you have of that? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sandra. The answer to the first question is, and this is only my answer, it's only how I look at it. What came to me is the physical body is very temporary and it only serves a certain purpose. Associated with the body, not in it, but associated with it, is the soul. And it's my guess that the temple of man, mind, is in the soul. It goes with us everywhere throughout eternity. The temple of man is our inherent ability, as the daily prayer says, to know God and to worship him. And that's the best that I can come up with. I hope it helps. The second question about illness being a symptom of, what shall we say, wrong living. Some Christians, Muslims, whoever, some people believe that. I doubt it. I think in some cases, a physical illness might be related to, well, whatever. I am totally not qualified to say too much about this. But I am tempted to say that physical illness is more a matter of your genes, what you inherited physically from your ancestors, your genes, your diet, your lifestyle, and of course the mental attitude and spiritual attitude. If they're negative, if any of those aspects are negative, they can drag you down, and perhaps a negative spiritual outlook or emotional outlook can lead to disease. But I think in general, I think it's too flippant, because people are too apt to say, well, she got cancer because, and on and on. We don't know that. Some physical illness may be sent to us as a test from God. We don't know. Except people should be very, very careful what they say about it, because we don't know.
That was really interesting. So what you're saying is that the temple of man is the soul. It's in association with the body that it makes it the temple, right? Okay, that's really interesting, because it's very different to how I envisaged that idea of the physical body. So thank you so much.
Well, I hope I'm right, Sandra. Thanks for asking.
Thank you for the good questions, everyone. We appreciate it that we were able to spend this time together. It is just one Sunday of several that we've had. We welcome you to view the beautiful videos, presentations, also previous from Eileen. And Eileen's gone through various different subjects. I would just say one thing is, if you want to find these videos, you want to go to clearwaterbaha'is.org. You can see on that website a few pieces of interest, but then you can go straight to YouTube, the Clearwater Baha'is YouTube channel. You can also go to the Facebook page for the Baha'i Center of Clearwater. There we are posting on Facebook. We're streaming actually right now. We're streaming live Facebook videos and YouTube videos. So we've got the Clearwater Baha'is on YouTube and the Baha'i Center of Clearwater on Facebook. And we, of course, recommend you to subscribe if you're interested in watching more. And Eileen, we are very thankful that you came and spoke here with us on this really important subject, something that is an ancient, very, very ancient piece of information, the idea of the temple, the human temple, this important and yet so mysterious spiritual piece. We thank you for sharing that with us.
It was my joy.
And with that being said, we all welcome you to ask questions, continue to comment, and Eileen, where we have pieces from you that you like to share, she will respond, and we are happy to facilitate that process while we still can. With that being said, we hope you all have a beautiful Sunday. It is Father's Day weekend, and I know there's some fathers out there celebrating. And to all of you fathers living vicariously through your sons, or whether you have adopted children, all the circumstances that you fathers out there are living, we thank you all through your care and your effort and your continued love and support. We wish you all a beautiful Sunday and happy Father's Day to you.